Hi, I'm Nicholeen Peck, and in this video I'm going to be talking about teaching your eldest child the importance of setting a good example. All over the world, I teach the principles of self-government, good communication, and how to have a united family. Well, when the oldest child is not setting a good example, it actually has a ripple effect on the entire sibling group. Maybe you've already seen that, maybe that's why you're on this video. But in this video, we're going to be talking about what to do to help the oldest child understand what their example does for the other children and how to help them invest in setting that good example for everyone else. Every single person has a role within the family, and those roles are oftentimes impacted by birth order. So the role of the eldest child in a family is what? That's important to know. In fact, do they even know their role? Oftentimes, the oldest children will be asked to do things like watch younger children, do things to serve younger children, maybe be a helper to mom or dad in a specific way that seems a little bit more grown up, those kinds of things. Parents will tell that child, you need to set a good example, but do they really understand the role of being the eldest child in the family? If you have a really deliberate discussion with your child about what their role is in their birth order, but also just as a child, that they're supposed to be a learner, that's still really important. We can't forget that part of the role of child. But if you have a discussion with them about their roles, then it is more likely that they'll be able to embrace the understanding that being an oldest child means that life is going to be a little bit different for them. While I'm on the topic of roles, I just want to make sure that I point out I do have a book all about roles. It's called Roles: The Secret to Family, Business, and Social Success. And the whole point of this book was to help parents and children better understand their family roles, not responsibilities, but like who they really are to each other in the family, so that they can have better communication as a group. And it's a fun book that you can read even with a child because it's a learning story. So a lot of parents like discussing it as a family and getting their roles in the right place. So what is the role of the eldest child? That's important to understand, right? So number one, learner. I already mentioned that because all children are supposed to be learners. But when you are a learner and you are the oldest, then what that means is that part of your role is to actually set an example for the learning. So if you've got other people that are under you, they're younger than you, they're also learners, but you have come first, then it's just self-evident that you have to set the example of the learning. This is how you do the learning. These are lessons. These are things to do and things not to do. So you don't want to put so much pressure on your eldest child that they feel like they have to be perfect. I know that some parents do that inadvertently. They don't realize when they're saying set a good example that they're putting this big weight on the child. But it's super important for the child to recognize, listen, you will make mistakes sometimes because you're learning. You're a learner. That's part of being a child right now. And sometimes you might do things that will be ways that aren't very productive, that we learn lessons like, ooh, I better not do that again. But one of the most important things that you can do as an eldest child is point out to your younger siblings, that was not the right way, or that was the right way. I'm glad I did do it that way because. So to take on that type of a mindset does require a little bit of maturity. And so that's not going to probably really settle in until they get a little bit older. When you have a child that's like 3 and 4 and you're wanting them to set a better example for the teeny tiny one, they may not fully understand the logic behind them being able to always point in the right moral direction or the right cause and effect direction so that the ones below them can process that properly. They don't even recognize anybody is processing. They don't even know they're processing. So it's harder to explain that to them, in which case you have to probably do a lot of that out loud processing. But I do know that for my children, when they would see their older brother, who is the oldest of the siblings, make a mistake, and it was discussed whether by him or by me, they would go, oh, so don't do that one, right? Or when they would see him succeed at something and it was discussed by me or by him, it would be, oh, do that one. But I have to say it's much more powerful when the sibling discusses it. Younger children like to see their older siblings succeed because it gives them hope of which direction to go. You should definitely explain that to your oldest child too. Say, do you know that you are the example that they will hold up for how to succeed? Or maybe what failure looks like. Now, not to put tons of the pressure on, right? Because we don't want to be piling on pressure. That's not good for anxiety and just overall, self-health, right? Mental health. But we do want them to know that there's no way out of that, right? That's just how it is when you're born first. So we're going to talk more about what you can do to help your eldest child to take more of an investment in their role as the oldest. But first, click on that subscribe button. There are so many great videos here with skills and principles that you're going to want to teach that oldest child so that they can set a better example for the younger ones. Click the subscribe now. Sometimes people don't like their birth order. They don't like the pressure that comes from being an oldest child. They don't like feeling like, oh no, everybody's watching me, and if my younger sibling does something they shouldn't do, is it my fault, right? That can feel really heavy. So we've got to make sure that when we're talking to our eldest children that we are not putting that type of weight on them and that we clearly define, hey, listen, you are not responsible for everybody else. This is going to help them too. When you put them in charge, you're going to be able to say, you're responsible right now for this and this, but you're not responsible for every decision that every person makes. They will be held accountable when I get back. It lets them know there is a line. I am parent. You are not parent junior. Okay. You are still a child. You're just oldest child. You're learning how to take on new responsibilities and develop new skills, but you don't have to see yourself as the one who must control everything that happens for the younger children. This will help them live more authentically too, as well as, like I mentioned, decrease the pressure that they might be feeling. So one thing that you can do though, as you are setting this up, is making sure that you clearly define responsibilities based on the moment, instead of making blanket statements such as, you need to always watch your brother and make sure, the word always, your oldest child is going to go, okay, I'm going into responsibility mode. It is totally my job. And when they do that, they start to feel then controlling over that other person. They'll even stop liking that oldest child, role that they have. In fact, that's really common for people not to want to be oldest child, and they start pulling away from the responsibility that they see that is associated with being the oldest child. If we can decrease that feeling of pressure that they have to be perfect or watch over everybody, all the better. One key way that we do that is by making sure that if we're going to leave a child in charge of another child, that we make it clear to everybody, this person is not in control of you. They are going to be watching over you and telling you what probably should happen, and then they will be reporting to me because I'm the parent. And so keeping those lines of authority very clear helps maintain parental authority and helps the child be able to just be a child, even though sometimes they have to help out with some of those responsibilities. When my oldest son was expressing some frustration one time about being the oldest child, I looked at him and I said, you know what, you just have to accept this. You have to just say, okay, that you're the oldest child and stay calm about it and drop the subject, because I didn't get a picket and you didn't get a picket. And there's only one person that knows why you're the oldest child, and that's God. So we're really God-fearing people in our family. And I said, listen, God's in charge of birth order. I don't have anything to do with that. And so we have to trust that he knows what's going on. So as an oldest child, nobody else will have your same life. That's just the way it is. And for whatever reason, God knows that you need to have this experience as being an oldest child and having these responsibilities. That's just what he knows. And we have to trust that because there's nothing else we can do about it. So I explained to my oldest child that all of the other children will have different responsibilities and roles based upon their birth order too. And I also warned him, just so you know, because you're the oldest, there will be things that you will not be able to do in your childhood that your youngest brother will probably be able to do in their childhood. And that is because there's no children after him and there are children after you. And that's just how it goes. Because I have to look out for the upbringing of all of the children. And when you are first, that means there will be certain movies that might be okay for you to watch because you're older, but the other people can't watch them and they're younger and they're going to have family movie night with us. So that's just how it goes. Now, the cool thing is you get to try all kinds of things first. So that's fun. And you might get to do grown-up adult things before anybody else. So that's exciting, right? Where some people might not get as many responsibility opportunities like you will because you're older. So you get the opportunity to mature even better, to develop more maturity than them because you are the oldest, right? So explaining some of those things so that they see there will be a difference. It's not going to be the same across the board. That's just how it goes. And I do think that God uses birth order to remind us all that He knows who we're supposed to be and that it is up to us to accept that, embrace it, and move on, because if we are fighting always our birth order, something that is self-evident that we can't change, what's the point of that? It's like, fighting the fact that I'm married. Why would I do that? That's self-evident. I am. How about I just make it better, right? So when we know things about ourselves, let's not fight them. And that's what I talk to my children about. I also praise a lot. So if you want your children to really take on that role of, I am the eldest, I'm okay with it, I like it, then you need to acknowledge all the good that they do, even though they make mistakes. I think as an oldest child, we sometimes have these expectations that we hold up there. And then if they don't meet them all the time, we just tear down. That's not the right way to motivate a person to love their birth order and to really set a good example for the other children. So one of the things that we can do is we can acknowledge all of their efforts again and again by praising those efforts and then guiding them and mentoring them on. So instead of tearing them down, let's think of our parenting in more of a gentle, guiding type of way, even though we absolutely do need to be consistent because their example can lead to destruction of other children, actually inadvertently, if they're not careful. So what we do with that first child, even though they are the first one out of the chute, it's kind of like the pancake child, they might get a little burned along the way. They do lay a foundation for all of the rest of the children. They need to know that. And you need to keep that in mind as you're working with that oldest child so that you always give the oldest child the attention that they need. It's easy to pass them off, but when they get the attention and the bonding from you, they actually do a much better job at setting the example and nurturing the other children. So keep that in mind. That bond is vital for them to set those good examples for the younger children. If you have enjoyed this video, then I am pretty sure that you are going to love my next video, which is called The Not So Known Secret for Parenting Success. That is a full-length class that goes into great details about the skills and principles of self-government that you can use as you're training your children, and it will decrease anxiety for not only that eldest child, but all of them. So click on the link to The Not So Known Secret for Parenting Success now. I'll see you there.